welcome to the OKD Working Group meeting for April 11th of 2023. And the meeting notes are, there's a link to them in the chat, or there will be a link to them in the chat. And you can take a look at the agenda, let us know if we've missed anything, and if you think that there should be something added, moved around, or whatnot. And please put your name in the attendees section so that we know you were here. And agenda looks good, everybody? All right, I'm seeing lots of shaking heads. So let's start out with OKD release and CICD updates with Shireen.
I need to find the unmute button. Okay. So what have we been up to? So we've got 4.12 releases, and that's working quite fine. We have been able to release also based on the 4.13, which is the coming release of OCP. So that's also something that we are able to do. On the latest changes that we've done with the CICD, we've been having Alex, who's been contributing a lot of new things. So he's been working on the security side and has been including things like the GitHub Actions, not the GitHub Actions, sorry, the GitHub app token and a Pro service account, so that we also can go and tag the release once we are done. And so that's what's the latest changes on the CI/CD side. We're still running on Operate First, and basically we're also looking at changing that to start also releasing off of MOC, but that's something that needs still a lot of work in order to happen. So for now, we're still on Operate First.
Excellent. Any questions or updates? Oh, Brian is asking, what's MOC?
It's the Massachusetts Open Cloud Initiative.
Excellent. And Luigi had mentioned, it was 2 weeks ago, I'd asked about the possibility of getting notifications on builds and releases. And he mentioned that you're working on a little project, a little side project for that. Yeah, how's that going?
It's going well. We've tested it with like fake tokens and fake rooms. So now what we're missing is to have a specific room where we can push content to, and that can be probably from what we identified a Fedora matrix server. So I don't know if Timotei, do you know someone that we can get in contact with to have that? Do you know?
That's a good question.
For the Fedora matrix instance, what
yeah,
would it be? You can ask for a channel on the Fedora something repo. I'll find the link.
There might be already set up for OKD there that's been abandoned, but
would we want to use that generic discussion one for notices and notifications? I mean, I guess if it's not being used for discussion, I guess it doesn't matter. We wouldn't have to worry about it. So there is an OKD channel there, yeah.
So yeah, the only thing that we're missing is a specific robot user that we can use to push notifications, and the room ID to use. The PR is up. It's already into the SCOS build and also on the release pipeline. Okay.
Does anyone have any opposition to using the matrix OKD channel?
Will we be able to pick it up and propagate it elsewhere? It's just if no one's actually signed up and listening to that channel, pushing notifications there won't be of much use to people.
Well, there is bridging with IRC already, I know, between those. And then I guess then we'd want a bridge to Slack, which I don't know if there is a bridge already up from the Fedora to Slack or not. I don't know.
Well, I'm guessing Slack, Twitter, and then the new
Mastodon.
Mastodon.
Right.
Yeah, I'm guessing the Twitter and Mastodon are probably the two that we want notifications to go to, as well as the Slack channel, the Kubernetes, because I think that's where people are hanging out. So
yeah, does it make sense then to at least just get the matrix up and running and then figure out bridging to the other platforms after that, just so that we have it someplace so that we can see? That would be helpful.
Yeah.
So Shireen, note that if we already have a channel and you just need an account, you can just create an account anywhere. You don't need to be on the Fedora Matrix instance. You can just create an account on matrix.org and use that.
Yeah, but for the room ID, does anybody already have that, or do we have to use the link that you shared?
It should say while we're talking, I'll look up, because the room ID is going to be in the info for the room/channel. So let me look that up while we're talking here. All right, so we know that that's moving forward. That's awesome, and we'll figure out the details on that. All right, let's move now to, or any other questions, I should say, on release and CICD? No? Okay, then let's move on now to the SCOS updates with Timothy.
Hey, so this week's I'm a little unprepared, so I don't have anything specific. In general, we're looking at the Fedora 38 release, which is going to happen in a few weeks. We're in a freeze right now, so it's going to happen this month or at the end of this month or next month. And yeah, but OKD won't be switching to it right now. It will be for the next release. Apart from that, I don't think we have anything major happening right now in Fedora CoreOS, apart from the items I mentioned last week, which are still relevant. The ARch64.1, etc. So that's it.
Yeah, any questions on that from folks? Any feedback? Any thoughts? All right, moving on now to SCOS updates. Christian isn't here, but does anyone have anything that they can contribute and have any knowledge of what's up?
Yeah, we've so for the time being, the SCOS 4.12 and 4.13 have been stable. We're just picking up a lot of problems with 4.14. Christian's having a look into that. Exactly what it is, I'm not 100% sure, but it's got to do with AWS upgrades. It keeps on failing. So I don't know, maybe Timothy, you might have insight.
Which issues, Ray, are you speaking about on OKD?
The 4.14.
The last change that we did on the pipeline for the SCOS build was to remove the secure boot tests because they were kind of failing. And I had a pipeline that was building something on Friday, but then again today when I looked, it was blocked again. I think it was more of an operate first issue rather than a SCOS build issue. So do you think that we can we should keep this secure boot tests off for now, or is there something new that probably happened?
I haven't been able to investigate so far. Probably need finding a bug in Bugzilla for the kernel. We have an issue to track it in OpenShift, in the OpenShift OS repo, but yeah. needs investigation. It's not the first time this was broken on the CentOS 9 stream kernels. So
All right, folks. And any other thoughts on that stuff? Then let's move on to community development updates with Brian.
Okay, so in the agenda, you'll see that we've got a link to the planning board. We've now switched the community meeting to use the Git project. So we're putting everything on there. At the minute, we don't have any of the Red Hat internal projects on there. So if there is any sort of community feedback input required, it would be quite nice if we could put those projects onto the board as well. Obviously, there's things happening within Red Hat that aren't necessarily public, or we can't have community input, then they should stay within Red Hat. But if there's anything that you particularly want community contributions or feedback on, it would be nice to put them on, just again, so the community is aware of all the work that's going on with OKD, and they can participate. And then the second thing is, if anyone's got some spare cycles and feels like they want to do anything for OKD, that's the place to go see what's there. I mean, we've got the ready column. We've currently got 14 tickets waiting to go. There's quite a lot of new tickets that we'll process next week. And then we've got a few in the backlog. So we are sort of ramping this up. We want to document the process and get it going. In terms of work ongoing, a lot of it is documentation with the OKD docs. We want to put a banner on older versions to prompt people to go look at the latest version of the docs. I know that OCP has that feature, but we don't have that for OKD, so we want to get that feature enabled. We've got some work going on to create 2 versions of a single node installer. One is the nuts and bolts and all, get down into the guts and do it all manually that Luigi is doing. But we're also looking for the self-hosted assisted installer to get that version put in. So it's a much lighter way of getting going. So I think we're still looking for a volunteer on that one. Luigi is doing the detailed single node installer. I'm doing some tidy up actions on the site, just doing some updates. And then we've got some process stuff that we need to get done through as well. We also looked at the survey. We want to do a review of the survey from last year, and also potentially kick off a new survey for this year, looking at the OKD users and seeing what their feeling is and where we want to focus. We've talked about the getting started experience, both from the documentation, making it easier to link to the good content from Red Hat, OpenShift, and also Kubernetes, but also then positioning what is OKD, because we're still having conversations that people don't really get it, the open source nature of it compared to OCP. So we are looking at doing a full review and rewrite on the homepage to get rid of some of the verbose language that has a lot of words but says very little, if I can put it that way. So we want to make that a lot more concise and more to the point, to actually sort of let people know exactly what OKD is and what they can do with it, and the fact that they don't need any Red Hat licensing or agreements, or it truly is open source and available to them. And with that, then we want to look at the experience on how to get up-to-date guides. We've had quite a few discussion items or issues raised where people have been looking at really old guides and they're trying to install 4.8 and things like that, and asking questions on really old versions. So we want to see if there's a way that we can get people to the latest and greatest content. If necessary, create some of our own. If there are holes out there, I think that's about it from, unless I miss anything, Jamie.
No, I think that covers it. Diane, you had a question?
Yeah, I had a question. You could see all the ink from Easter eggs on my hands. I was looking for the hand raising button. So has Michael Burke gone quiet on the documentation for you guys in terms of putting that banner on?
He started. He did go quiet for a while, but he's actually started interacting with us again. He put a pull request on the OpenShift documentation. Still do have an issue because he keeps asking me to review them, but it's difficult to review where I can't actually see the rendered mark, the rendered result. Just seeing sort of code changes in isolation doesn't really give you a great review to say has he caught everything. And so I'm working through that one with him. But yes, he is now working with us again. He did go quiet for a couple of months, but he seems to be back on.
Is that mostly because you're behind the firewall? Could a Red Hatter see that better? Or is it just the way the review process is?
I get a link. I mean, the internal system sends me to a link, but that just seems to be the OCP. I'm not actually sure whether the OKD docs get built as part of the CI process. The OCP stuff does, and I can see those links, but I don't know if they do get built. I don't know how to get to them.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether it's part of the CICD process for building OKD either. I didn't think so. I could be wrong. But Amy, who's here, might be able to track that down for you. I know I'm officially leaving Red Hat at the end of the month, so I'm not going to volunteer myself, but I would happily volunteer somebody else who could track that down. I don't think it is. And Michael Burke, Amy, is a wonderful gentleman who has been with us for many years, working on making sure the OKD docs actually got built for us for each version. So I can intro you to him if you'd like to be the connection there. Because the documentation, that banner ought to be just a single push. And he said months, probably November last year, that he could do it. So yeah, he ought to be, it ought to be there, but I don't, yeah, that's all. So Amy, if you're willing to take on the documentation stuff, that would be, now you don't have to do the documentation. You just have to be the link to the documentation people.
Yeah, I can do that.
Thank you.
Fantastic. All right. Anything else? We covered a lot of ground of what's the latest and greatest. Really, it's just there's a lot of work to do, particularly in the community development area. We just have like tons and tons of tickets of stuff to get through.
Yeah,
Jamie,
sorry, Glenn, go ahead.
Oh, well, Jamie, I have a question about how I can maybe introduce OKD to the community here in Qatar. There is a very small Red Hat office here. And when I went to my first Red Hat Roadshow, they said, some people came to me and said, our name is GMB, and we pretty much run things here. And they are legally IBM here. And so they were actually in charge here. And I don't know how is that, how do I make the contact such that OKD can, you know, I can talk about some resources such that I can train a little harder?
That's a great question. I think that's something for a long-term Red Hatter who might have some insight into how you make those connections. I don't know. So I mean, what are you thinking that you would want to start out with, I guess would be my question. What type of way would you want to initially introduce people in the area to it?
Well, primarily it seems like GMB was running everything, including the Red Hat presentation, and I guess they seemed to be a little, you know, leaning more IBM-ish on everything. And so I don't know. I think there are only like 8 people in the office here in Qatar on the Red Hat side. So and everyone has pretty much left for Saudi Arabia because of the billion-dollar stuff going on. But just to have a conversation, and when I sat down and talked to them, we were talking about training, and I think they were doing a focus on more of open banking, and that was things that seem to be on their priorities. But I haven't reached back out to them, but I wanted to reach back out to them. But I was just trying to figure out how do I do it, or if there's a conflict, or you know, how is it really territorial? I thought we were all open source, but you know, in a different country, it's hard to test the waters a little bit.
I would say unless there, I mean, I'm just speaking off the cuff here, but unless someone puts walls up, I would assume no walls. Like
Okay.
it can't hurt to reach out to people, I wouldn't think.
Just go
Yeah, I
for
mean,
it. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
will
I think the one thing to be aware of, because of the nature of the Middle East, because I work for IBM, so in a lot of the countries we do have a different country. So sort of in Saudi, it's not IBM, it's SBM. It's a different legal entity. It's something to do with the local laws and how companies are incorporated in those things. So it may not be called Red Hat, or that's a sort of typical arrangement in many of the Middle Eastern countries. And it may just be a sales office. It may literally just be a sales office rather than a technical outpost.
Okay.
And then, yeah, I mean, the other thing that we got is, with what Jamie mentioned, is if we have any interns or any volunteers or anybody that you want to get from any countries, we are looking for volunteers to come and help do some of the work, especially around documentation, so they don't have to be overly technical. Quite happy to mentor people into creating content, and but we do seem to have quite a lot on our plate at the minute. And some of the questions that we're getting in the sort of the support channels, they are around things like, how do I do a single node install? So not having the content is actually causing us more work at the minute.
Okay.
Yeah.
There is a huge workforce that is looking for something to take back to their countries. And so there is a potential powerful opportunity for that. But how do you bring them in and have it look organized, and, you know, where we can sit down and go over things? Everything is different here. So, you know, there's no open labs where things are installed. That all would have to be set up or virtualized somehow.
All right, well, we'll find out. As Almiko sounds like he has a suggestion here that might be good, which is the Red Hatters might be able to find a sales contact in that area, maybe, you know. So Red Hatters, if you could go and, you know, see if you can find a sales contact in that area, that might help narrow things down a little bit and help focus the conversations.
Yeah, I got to drop in a couple minutes for another conflict, but like, yeah, Dwayne, like if you're looking to try and communicate with someone where maybe you could set up like trainings or figure out how to connect with people who are selling OpenShift, then yeah, we could find who the sales contact in that region is and maybe shake that tree a little bit and say, okay, there might be an opportunity here. Could you talk to this guy, Dwayne, and see what's going on? But if you're looking for like specifically to promote OKD, that might be a little more difficult. I'm not sure who, you know, like we can promote OKD wherever we want to. It's an open source project, right? Like we can, you know, we can talk about it or show people as much as we want to. But in terms of like getting Red Hat to provide like assistance with trainings and whatnot, that's probably going to be a little more difficult. I'm not even sure where to start shaking the tree on that one.
Yeah, there's only one university here with a Red Hat Academy, and they just got that like maybe 4 months ago, and that's the only one here, and that's an Arabic university, and I haven't talked to them directly yet, but we're closer, but you know, you have to wait till after the holiday is over before things open back up.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like if I managed to come across someone, would a sales contact be helpful to you at all?
Yes, it would be.
Okay. I mean, I can take no promises. I can take a look around, and I'm leaving for KubeCon at the end of this week. So I'm going to be in Europe for a while, but you know, if I can find someone, I'll try to connect them with you, or I'll connect through the OKD community and see if you and I can just get something going.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Fantastic. All right. Anything else? Any last thoughts? Cool. Well, thank you folks for a excellent meeting, and don't forget community development meeting is next week, and we're looking for people to volunteer to help knock out some of these things, primarily documentation. So if anyone can take a look at the board, Brian has the link there in the agenda. And you see anything that you can do in terms of documentation and general information to get to people, that would be like super, super helpful. And Shireen, reach out to us if you don't have what you need to be able to get the notification stuff set up into the matrix. And thanks so much, folks. Talk to you next time.
Thank you. Cheers.